Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Got another week of League of Inches, and you can smell it. There we go. There's a bit of finals footy around the corner, and one more week to go. Of a couple of interesting lineups this week that we've seen, and got another guest on this week. Dane's back, which is good to see, and recovered from his injury from last week. He arrested the poor bloke. We thought we'd have a rest up and get him ready fit for the finals, so it's good to see him back. Quickly do a hats off, and I'm going to throw egg on mine and Sid faces here because we both said the Dogs had the wooden spoon in the bag, and they've just pulled off the victory against South last week. So straight away, hats off to the Dogs because that was a mighty fine performance. I know South's a little bit off, but the Dogs came out and they don't want that spoon, and you can tell by the way they're playing that they don't want it. And boys, just a quick one on the hats off. How'd you like that Dogs performance? One is.
Yeah. No, look, I told you they're a club that have heart, and the players know it. They know the expectation of the club, the history of the club, the fans, what they expect as well. And their coaches have properly relayed that to them. Some clubs don't pull it off, like my team, but they don't understand how passionate the fans are, and that they don't understand how significant pulling on that jersey for that club is. But yeah, so these players, they respect the jersey and they respect the fans and they respect themselves. So they kept doing it, and then they got their just reward.
Yeah, that's great. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it was good to see the Dogs get a win. I think it was like winning a grand final for them, to be honest. And to jump out of that bottom spot, I think that was really good, and hand the spoon over to the Broncos. They probably deserve it, to be honest, the way they played this season. So yeah, I think it was good to see the Doggies get up and get a win on the board.
Yeah, it was brilliant work. So well done, Dogs fans. Hopefully you keep it off your hands, but we'll see what happens this week. It's been a crazy year, so we don't know anymore. We can't call anything. So, but let's start this off. And we started last week with the bottom four, and this week we'll do the rest of the bottom 18. So the final. Basically 12 to 9 spots. And first up, I want to throw Sid under the bus here. And I remember it's the first video we did, and it was predict your wooden spooners. And I predicted I actually forget who I predicted now, but Sid predicted the Mighty Warriors. And I think he's had some egg on his face for a second time in a week. And Sid, what do you make of the Warriors season?
All right, look, I'm glad you give me an opportunity to say something about this. So if you remember correctly, and we do have video evidence, I said to you, bearing in mind the same theory with picking a winner, picking wooden spoon has variables as well. You have injuries to key players. With the lower end teams, they struggle a lot worse when one or two players are out, whereas the better teams, they just, they keep going because they have the better systems, right? Now, the other variable was the coaches. So I gave the kiss of death to Seabolt, McGregor, and Kearney.
Yeah.
All three of them are now sacked. Now, Kearney was the first one sacked. And then you saw the difference. So that's one variable. So although I picked the Warriors to come last, because of everything that they're going through, being away from their family. Every few weeks they'd lose a player or two, sometimes more, plus the normal things like suspensions and injuries, and being away from home for so long. And that was what I based it on. And also having, very similar to McGregor type coach where he's a club man, says all the right things, but I could tell quickly that he really didn't know what he was doing, but he's a popular figure. Being popular is not good enough, and they picked up on that and they got rid of him. They didn't take 8 years like the Dragons did, but they got rid of him and they turned things around. And Todd Payton, who's known as he was a former front rower, he's known as a front rower, a halfback in the front rower's body, so he has a very good rugby league mind, and we saw that,
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the Warriors with Kearney, it was more of that bro mentality was still at the club. And I think from the outsider's point of view, we knew that was the dangerous thing about the Warriors. They were too sort of in their comfort zone where Peyton comes in, and he's not one of the bros. He's not one of that. He came in with a culture to do it for yourselves and your family, but make sure we're here with a purpose. And I think that's what changed the Warriors season around. Was as soon as he got there, it changed around, because before he got there, they were looking at the wooden spoon. They were playing pretty dreadful footy, to be honest. But they came back in, and they proved all the doubters wrong. And honestly, if I know they didn't make the 8, but it's probably one of the best seasons for a club, in a weird way to say, just with everything they had to deal with. They had to deal with obviously being away. We've read about Tuivasa-Sheck being away from his family for 5 months now. He's just had a newborn as well, so that would have been things like that. Is just real tough, and I know a lot of people who are away from families at the moment with the borders closed and things like that. Like, it's tough work. So kudos to the Warriors. I know that it's not finals footy, but you're looking strong for next season with a couple of good signings, and move on to the Manly Sea Eagles, which for mine have been probably a big disappointment this year. A lot of people had them on the edge of the top 4, if not top 2. So, Dane, what are you making of the Manly Sea Eagles season?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, I haven't watched many of their games because they just really haven't done it for me. I think they have been very disappointing this season, and, they've thrown a lot of money at DCE, and they've had some, big injury with Tommy Turbo, and, the other Trbojevic, he's been playing pretty good as well. I just think they've been a bit of a basket case this season, and a bit of a wasted season for them. I probably expected a lot more from them, and probably expected them to, be up there somewhere. But, they just really haven't done it for me. I just think they've been very disappointing this year.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And I think the problem with Manly that I've found is that people were using the excuse of injuries with them for a lot of time, and I think that was a bit of a cop out, to be honest with you, because I think there's something a bit deeper into that when you think about it. I think it's more of they've put a lot of money into, say, 3 or 4 big name players for the salary cap, and as soon as they get a couple of injuries, there's no depth there because they can't afford it. Where a lot of the other clubs are a bit smarter with that. So you're forked into obviously the Turbo brothers, which I can't blame him for doing. He's a good player. I still think Terry Evans is on a little bit too much money than what he's actually putting on the table. And I think the other one was Marty Tapau's on quite a bit of money. So there's a couple of big name players there, and a few of them had some pretty big injuries this year. So I think injuries is a bit of a cop out for that club, and I think they've got to fix up that salary cap. And at the moment, they don't seem to be signing much for next year. They just lost Fanua Blake. So interesting what they do next year as a club, bit of turnaround. But I think deeply massive upset season for those guys, really, and disappointing. So, do you have anything quickly to say on the Manly Sea Eagles season?
Yeah, look, the Trbojevic dilemma, Tom I speak of, with the recurring injuries, the hamstring is a very serious one. You know a lot about it, being a sprinter. It's the biggest muscle in the body. He seems to get full tears quite a bit for his age. I don't know where to there. Maybe there's a sports science issue. I know Manly probably has the worst facilities one of the worst facilities out of any club. So perhaps maybe the least professional place to be around. And the facilities do make a difference. They have, most clubs are starting to have, or the good ones are starting to have, like, high performance centers, and that also includes rehab clinics. There's something going on there. I can't put my finger on it. Hazard pulled it off last year, where he did have a lot of injuries again. So is it a coincidence that they had a lot of injuries last year? What was a much better effort, and this year still a lot of injuries? There's something going on there.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and hit the nail on the head. But 10th place is obviously the Tigers, not on 9th spot at the moment, and who knows, they might finish there next week if they get a victory. But they're away from their favourite 9th spot. I'm sure they want to be in the top 8. But again, a season where they sort of fell just a bit short, and there was a couple of games, especially at the start of the season, where they showed a lot of promise. And To me, they showed like they're a team on the up, and I actually had them as my smoky for the comp at the start of the year. So I guess that's a bit of egg on my face for that one. But they've for mine, they sort of got themselves into a bit of a pickle because if you actually look at their squad, they've actually got quite a few playmakers. Now, there was a bit of shuffling throughout the season. There was never a set 6 and 7, which in clubland, it can sort of upset the whole team. You see the good, successful teams so far this year. Like the Roosters have had pretty much their set 6 and 7. I know they sort of had a bit of a moment there with the halfback situation, but they've always had a sort of steady at least 6. And same with Storm, same with Penrith, and obviously Para as well with Moses and Brown. So you've got to sit there and stick with a combination. And Tigers sort of never had that. I guess as a positive, they've got a couple of good signings coming in next year. Like I know for mine, the Tamo coming in, I think that's a really good signing. He's going to come and bring a bit more starch to that forward pack and a bit more experience, which I think they'll miss in them this year. They've got a good sort of forward pack, but they're a bit younger. They don't have that mentality yet to just keep grinding away. And obviously if they can get Addo Carr, which but I don't know if he's the answer at fullback yet, but how about you boys and Dane? What did you make of the Tigers? Did you watch them a bit more than you watched the Sea Eagles this year?
Yeah, I like the Tigers, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think they've had some, like you mentioned, ups and downs with their halves combinations, and I just don't think they've gone about it the right way as a club for, having a stock standard, good starting halves pairing. And look, they've got a lot of talent there. I think the way they handled the Benji Marshall situation is, I just think the club's been in a little bit of a mess internally, to be honest with you. And, it always starts with the hierarchy and how they sort of channel that down to the playing group. And, if they're in the media for the wrong reasons, well then, it makes it harder for the players to play for each other. Yeah, I had them up there probably making the top 8, to be honest, at the start of the season. But, it's been a little bit up and down for them. And, if they could get Addo Carr, I think that would be huge. But I did hear that might not happen now. I was reading in the news. So, it'd be interesting what happens in that space. And also with Cameron Smith, if he retires with Harry Grant, because I think he's a great young talent and he's got a big future ahead of him. And I'd like to see him stay at the Tigers, to be honest. And I think he's been performing pretty well there. So a little bit disappointing from the Tigers, but I think they've got a lot more that they could bring to the table.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I'd love to see Grant stay at that club. And they sort of, especially when he's away with injury that couple of weeks, they were sort of disjointed. But as soon as he got back there, he just straightens them up. And he's a terrific young player. I really hope he doesn't go back to the Storm and just a fill-in for Smith for another year, because he deserves a lot better than that. But on the Benji situation, I know quickly just a couple of Tigers fans, especially in social media, that were pretty critical of the club, but they get Maguire there to make these hard calls, and I think that was one of them. As I mentioned, they do have quite a few 6s and 7s at the moment, and it needs to be a balance. The roster is all about balance at the moment, and unfortunately, it's a time for a club legend who's getting a bit older to move on. And Sid, I know you've enjoyed watching the Tigers as well, but what did you make of them at the moment, and their roster situations with the Benji situation and things like that?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because you guys talked about the on-field issues. The off-field issues are basically Benji's their best out of the halves that they used. So Billy Walters, Luke Brooks, and Reynolds. But they've let him go because he's older and he's cheaper. So he's on less money. He'll be on a little bit more than Walters, but Reynolds are well over $500,000, and Brooks is on, I think, $850 from memory. And adding to that problem is the Packer situation. They paid overs, and we've discussed this before. They paid overs for Packer to tear him away from the Dragons, and they haven't got the return on that investment. The year that they picked him up, we went down two interchanges, which stitched him up, because he's not a high minutes sort of big man. You can have a big man, but he needs to play more minutes, basically. And it's even gone quicker. The ruck's gone even quicker. So they've got him and Ben Madalino from the Warriors, who's also on decent coin. So they basically loaded in front rowers, and then they had the young guys coming through, like Twal and the other guy, Josh Alloway, who are decent forwards, probably on a quarter of the money. And then so they've got basically the front row heavy with the cap and halves heavy, which you guys have also mentioned, with the cap. So they've got to find a way around it. They're fast backing into that situation, similar to what the Dogs were just coming out of as well. So there are issues. But having said that, they have a premiership winning coach. It'll be his job to get more value out of the cheaper players. Maybe he can mould them a little bit more with another year under his belt.
Just want to ask you a quick one on something you mentioned, Marshall being the standout playmaker for him this year. And obviously, and as an outsider, I see that and I go, hang on a second. Like, I know Benji's Benji, and he's been a freak of the game for quite a long time. He's pulled some magic out this year, but you've got some big name halves on some big money there with Brooks and Reynolds. And I guess if I was a Tigers fan, I'm sitting back going, well, why is a 34, 35-year-old shining so much? And they've had Brooks on that squad for 8 years or something now. It seems like he's never getting any older. So, where do you see Brooks at the moment? Well, I think he's got another 2 years left there or something. But where are you seeing Brooks's career? Because for mine, I don't think they're doing anything with him at halfback yet. I think there needs to be a change there.
Yeah, I can comment on that one. I think they said early on that they're going to build a team around Luke Brooks. I think he's so overrated. Like, plays some good footy in small spurts, but I think he's so overrated. If I was Tigers coach, I would have Reynolds and I'd probably have Marshall in the halves. I'd just dump Brooks. I'd release him. So, and generally, you do build a club, a team around, players, whether it be your fullback, your hooker, but generally it's your halves, right? I just don't see any flash or jazz or anything about Luke Brooks like you have with your Benji Marshall. Yes, he's getting older, but he can break games. He can change games just with his his footwork, his passing. So yeah, that's what I think on the Tigers halves, and especially Luke Brooks. I just think he's so overrated.
I think most people would probably 100% agree with your decision. But I guess the comeback factor to that is that when you've got Luke Brooks there as a Tigers fan would be thinking, well, our hierarchy a couple of years ago, which I think now they've got rid of that CEO, but signed into a big money, big long year contract. You've got to release him and you've got to keep paying that contract to hope someone can pay for it. Sid, if you're a coach of the Dragons right now and you get an email saying you can have Luke Brooks here for $700,000, what are you saying?
Well, we're very respectful. No thanks. Look, I know it sounds like we're bashing the poor kid, but we're not. We're just going by, if a player's young, all right, he's young. I think he's the same player he was 8 years ago, and that's the biggest issue. Can you blame him? Can you blame the lack of development through the several coaches since then? I think maybe he perhaps has an issue between the ears in terms of confidence. He can get down, so one drop ball or a bad kick, giving away a 7-tackle set or kicking out on the full, gets him down, and then he just he calls up. He won't. He doesn't demand the game. There's a certain arrogance required of halves. He just doesn't have that. Very similar to Ash Taylor and, as I mentioned before, Ben Hunt. They get the sad eyes very, very quickly.
Yeah.
The best example I would say is say Maloney. They used to ask Maloney, "Oh, do you miss 4 tackles or give away intercept pass?" But he'd still win the game. He'd set up 2 tries in the second half. And then they say, "How do you do it?" And he says, "Because I don't care." He goes, I don't, nothing affects me. He goes, I laugh it off, I'll just go again, that mental toughness.
There was a funny story about him, and it was a good thing you bring up, and there's a lot of young halves should look at it, is he was a big player like that. He'd throw an intercept and he'd sort of laugh at it, and you'd be thinking at the time, you'd be like, what's he talking about? What's he go? He just threw an intercept. He sets up 2-3 in the next few sets. So that's the mentality you should have. And you said it, beat up with Brooks, but it's not that. It's just that as a club, you can see they've got so much promise to get to that next stage where they want to go. It's just that it's a key position, and you've got to get that right as a club to move on forward. But obviously, the last one, who unfortunately didn't make the 8 this year, but I'd say if they were in the 8, I think there'd be a couple of teams a bit worried to verse them this year, and that's the Gold Coast Titans. And they've got a big game against the Knights this weekend to see if they can hold on to 9th spot, and they deserve it. I think we've beaten most teams who haven't made the 8 this season, but this is a team that I can't really beat up. I'm actually going to give them pretty much all credit for the season they've had so far. And I think a lot of people still had them as wooden spooners this year as their early predictions, and they've improved that so much. Their coach is in high regards at the moment, and everyone you talk to around that club, I know a couple of people there that a couple of the trainers and things like that, and they just said as soon as he walked in the door, the players and the CEOs and the bosses and the sponsors, they love him. Apparently he's a real good manager, and he's getting the best out of those kids. And with the signs they've got next year, for mine, the time they're a top 8 team. And they're going to cause some worries next year. What do you boys think, Dane? What are you making of the Titans this year?
Yeah, well, I was thinking they were going to be bottom 2 for sure. And yeah, they hit a real low patch throughout the season. And it's Justin Holbrook, the new coach, yeah?
Yeah.
Since he came on board, I mean, what are they? Are they 4 in a row at the moment? About to get 5 in a row to finish the season?
Yeah.
Kind of like a hard luck story of the season, I think. Because I would have really liked to have seen them scrape into the top 8 and, yeah, just give, I don't know, one of those top teams a bit of a shake-up, because I think they've got a potential, and I didn't want to tip them in, footy tipping or anything like that early on in the season. They're just a team that doesn't matter who they're playing. It's kind of like the Broncos at the moment. You just don't tip them. Yeah. And I think it's good for the club moving forward. And, they're really, really trying to go through that rebuilding stage. And I think in a couple of years, I think they're going to be a top eight team back to back. So, I think it's good for them to win some games at the back end of the season and go into the off season, with their heads held high.
Yeah, there'll be a confident team in the off-season. I think that club's had that confidence in the system for an off-season for probably 5-6 years now, since their last sort of finals campaign. And it's good to see the team. It's a good team to look at if you say you're the Tigers, which we just spoke about, where the players have adapted this coach's new philosophy after halfway through probably the year. Obviously with the COVID break and stuff, they've come back and they didn't really get smashed as the Titans used to do. So they've come back and really become a team where you don't really want to play at the moment, especially up here. They like to throw the ball out on a dry patch, and they've got some good players like Fogarty and things like that and AJ Brimson, who's coming into his own. And Sid, what do you make of the Titans and their year?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed when they play. If I get an opportunity to watch, I try to watch every game, obviously, but But if I turn on the TV, or if I know there's a game on, it's the Titans, I actually get excited because they're quite entertaining. And I am seeing a system developing. Look, I have a little inside info on Justin Holbrook, because he actually was at the Dragons. McGregor got rid of him, obviously, because he's a threat,
Hang on, is this a League of Inches exclusive?
Yes, it is.
Here we go.
Yeah, about time. We need more of these. But
tune in, people.
He coached our Harold Matts. I know it's only under 16s, but he won the comp a couple of years in Harold Matts. Then he went into the under 20s before they got rid of it. The Toyota Cup, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he got top 4 and he made a grand final. And then McGregor got rid of him. So, and then the year after in the State League, same thing sort of happened with, what's his name, Matthew Head as well. So you see a pattern of successful coaches that were sacked because they were a threat to McGregor. But anyways, that's another story. Yeah. What I see with his style in attack and defence, they play what I call like a xylophone. So they all compress and then they spread in attack and defence. So in defence, they compress and they're quite happy to say, all right, if you want to throw a long ball, we'll run you down, right? So they've got numbers, and then they'll just say, all right, chance your hand, throw it around. And because they got confidence in their attack as well. So they don't mind conceding. They concede, they don't do that. And in attack, it's the same thing. they spend very little amounts of tackles in hit-ups. They might do 1 or 2. Some teams do 3 or 4. They'll spread it straight away. And what they do is when they pass it past the target. So as they're running, the guy's stepping before he catches it. And that's why they're going through gaps a lot.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. When you watch them play this week, watch when they attack. They always throw it past the guy that they're passing to, and he just goes wider. So there's xylophone, and he used to do that at St. George as well. So it's a good system, and like you both rightfully said, they're buying in. They're buying in. He's giving them belief.
Yeah, 100%. So good luck to the Titans, and I think next year is going to be even brighter for those fans. And I'm even up here. I might even get a membership and go and watch a few more of their games next year, because going to be a very exciting team to watch. But that's our review so far, guys. Just want to quickly go in a couple of quick predictions while I got the two boys with us. And first one, I'll let Dane answer first for this one. Who finishes last? Now, before you answer, we've got a big game. We've got the old Broncos and Cowboys Thursday night at Suncorp, which they can both realistically still get the wooden spoon depending on how results go. And you've got the Dogs against Panthers. So who are you liking for the spoon, and who should we be putting our houses on to get the spoon?
Well, I think the Dogs are going to lose. That's pretty much a no-brainer. I just don't think they can upset the Panthers just the way that they're playing at the moment. They're playing some really solid, consistent footy. The Broncos-Cowboys, that's an interesting game, because that could probably go either way. And Broncos would probably want to finish with a win. Cowboys aren't in that great either. And I did hear that Stags might be going to number 6 for the last game. I mean, look, they've got nothing to lose, really. So
he's been named there. So
yeah, I honestly think the Broncos are going to get it. I think they're going to get the spoon. I probably want them to get the spoon because I've got a few close friends that I want to give it. So the Broncos. Yeah, I got some side bets.
So we've got the Broncos for Dane. Sid, who you got?
I have to go with the Broncos because I have a more straightforward answer. I found that even when they played well, they just can't play for 80 minutes.
Okay.
Even there was a period when they actually looked like they were fighting to try and win a game. I think one game they were 18-0 up against Manly, and they lost 22-18 in the second half. And they do that a lot. They're so patchy. They play with this high energy, and they push, and they get to a point. And like a lot of the lower end teams, including the Dragons as well, they can't manage when the other team has momentum. They can't wrestle it back. They can't stop them from scoring points, and they just got no 80 minutes about them. Cowboys a little bit better recently, and I think they'll knock them over, and the Broncos will get the spoon.
Well, I'm going against both of you. So, guys, I'm actually saying the Broncos win this week. I think they've shown a little bit the last 2 weeks. They've shown a little bit of fight, and I think a key player that obviously Dane just brought up, Stags, is in a league of his own at the moment. I think going to 6, he's getting his hands on the ball a lot more now, which is dangerous. And I think for mine, I thought the Cowboys were really poor on the weekend. I know they scored 18 or so points, but I actually thought they were super poor. And I think the Broncos, surely after the season they've had, they can get one up for their fans, because if they're going to do it for anyone, they've got to do it for their fans. So I think the Dogs get it. I think the Dogs get the spoon. I think, unfortunately, the Panthers don't seem like they're resting too many players this week, so they want to keep this streak going, and they're just in a rare patch of form that I don't think the Dogs can keep up with. So, unfortunately, I'm going to say the Dogs. The other prediction I want quickly from both of you, there's obviously been a talk with 4th spots. So, you've got the Eels, and you've got currently 4th, and you've got the Raiders in 5th. Sid, who you got here for 4th?
Depends who's playing who.
Oh, hang on a second. Sorry, mate. Let me tell you. I thought you would look at the draw. We've got Sharks versus the Raiders at Netstrata Jubilee, your home ground. And you got the Tigers versus the Eels in a Benji and Lawrence song at Bankwest. Now, before you say it, I know you probably both haven't looked at the lineups yet, but Ricky's rested probably half his squad. Sharks obviously without Johnson, and pretty much the Tigers Para game are pretty much both teams at fairly full strength. So, who you got coming fourth?
So Parramatta's already ahead, they'll win. I think they'll beat the Tigers. Tigers will make a fun game of it. They don't mind Bankwest. It's like their second home. They don't mind. Yeah, I think it'll be competitive, but the Eels will win. I mean, obviously I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. As far as the Sharks Raiders, it really is a lottery. I'll have to look closely at the lineups, but Sharks might be able to get some false hope for the finals if they're playing a depleted side.
Yeah, and then they'll probably verse them again week 1 and get towed up once all the stars come back. So, Dane, who you got for fourth spot? My mob, or are you going to give me the shits and go the Raiders?
No, I reckon Eels will get in there, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, mate. Short and sweet. I like that.
Yeah, no, I would have liked to have finished top of the ladder so that we could have played you guys, the Roosters. So, it's a bit disappointing. But, we'll be there for the last dance, and it's just a matter of who else is going to be there.
Yeah, all right. We'll meet you. We'll meet you ANZ, mate. Book the tickets and we'll go down there. So I'll obviously say Parra's going to come fourth as well. So I'll lock that in. But good luck. Thanks, guys. It's been a good one. We've got the crew back together, and we're going to be fit and firing next week. It's going to be some finals games, which we're going to preview and have a bit more of an in-depth look. Obviously, fans' point of view with the games coming up and see where it's going to be won and lost and some players to look out for. So. Thanks, guys. Just one last thing I want to quickly mention is the refereeing, and I hope the bunker and the refs are starting to get a bit more on top of it this week, because there's been some worrying calls the last week or so, which as a fan, and obviously this is what we'd like to talk about on this show, is that from a fan's point of view, it's been pretty worrying. And I think it's okay human error, but there's a couple of things when you're professional in your mode of work where those sorts of things I don't think should be happening. So, Dane, thank you. You want any last parting words?
No, I'm looking forward to finals footy. I can't wait to see some teams step it up a couple of extra levels and see, separate the contenders from the pretenders.
Spoken like a true arrogant Roosters supporter. Absolutely, absolute filth. Sid, I know your team unfortunately doesn't get September footy or finals footy this year, but any parting words this week?
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to the finals, but for the poor teams to stop playing and then the quality of footy will pick up. I just will add one more thing in relation to your comments about the referees. This is my parting word for you. Henry Perenara will not be getting a Christmas card from you anytime soon.
Oh, goodness me. Just let everyone quickly know we've got a group chat and I was absolutely filthy. If he watches this, drop into the DMs of League of Inches and we'll have a chat, mate. Give me your phone number because that was absolutely disgraceful. But thanks for getting me boiling again, Sid. I'm about to go to bed and I can't sleep now. So thanks, boys. Thanks to everyone that keeps watching and tune in again next week because we've got a good one coming for you. So cheerio.
Look forward to it.
Good luck to the final round, guys.
Thanks, guys.